Hey, fifth grade, cartoon Mr. Rickman here to introduce you to your next project. Now, I'm just going to be narrating what you're going to be watching, and I did a video of me showing you what you're making out of clay. You guys are going to be making bobbleheads. It doesn't matter to me what kind of bobblehead. You can make a person or an animal. It just so happens that I'm actually making one of my favorite people in the world. His name was Bob Ross. He's an amazing relaxing painter that used to be on TV. So, first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your clay out of your bag, and tip number one is you have to wedge your clay. Wedging your clay means that you're just basically working all of the air out of that clay, so you have to push all of your weight down on it and flatten it out, then ball it up again, push all of your weight down on it and flatten out again, ball it up again, and then basically you're doing that about 5 times. And after the last time you ball it all up again, you should have hopefully worked out all of the little clay bubbles in there so that it doesn't explode in the kiln. Now, that's tip number one, wedge your clay. Tip number two, as you can see, I balled it up, but then I have to split it in half. One piece is for the head that you're making, and the other is for the body. It doesn't matter if you're making a person or an animal, but the size of the thing that you split it up into does. So if you're making a smaller body, then you need less for the body, or you're making a smaller head, then you're going to need less for the head. So how you split it up depends on how you see your finished sculpture. So tip number two, split it into 2 parts. Then you will see that I go on and I actually am going to start with the body. So I roll it out into like a cylinder, but then I stop and I start actually just leaning on one side of the clay to make a cone on top. And that, no matter what you're making, you have to have is the cone on top. That's the piece that actually the head rests on, and it has to be kind of to a point, because if it doesn't go to a point, then your head will just sit on the body and it won't bobble. So you have to kind of bring it to a point, because that's what makes it bobble. So tip number two, make sure you bring it to a point. You can see that I cut off the bottom to make sure it sits flat. Then we get to tip number 3. Remember, anything that's thicker than your thumb is going to probably explode in the kiln. So you have to make sure that this thing, in my case, my body was way thicker than my thumb, so I had to hollow it out. So I took one of our clay knives and I just basically made a little cone inside of the body, and I just scooped out that, and then I kind of stuffed my thumb in there to make sure that it's hollow. You can see that the walls of my body are still pretty thick, but not thicker than my thumb. So make sure you hollow it out. That's tip number 3. Then I actually go to make legs, but I want my legs to stay connected, so it kind of looks like I cut these legs, but I didn't. I actually am just pushing the clay in, and I'm kind of keeping my thumb in the middle just to make sure that it didn't cut all the way through. Then you can see that I actually I'm making little toes that stick out. Now, this is when we get to tip number 4. Anytime, you guys remember this, anytime you're connecting 2 pieces of clay, you have to slip and score them. So don't forget to slip and score. You have to use a little bit of that slip that's right next to you in that yellow bowl, and you guys are going to be able to use that. And so you get both the piece that you're connecting and the piece you're connecting it to wet with the slip, and then you have to score it. So you're making kind of like those cross hatches so that they have things to kind of grab onto. Think of it again like Velcro grabbing onto each other. And then when you connect those pieces, you just kind of push and wiggle, and then use your finger, get it wet, and then kind of make sure that you clean off the line where they connect so you can't even tell where they were connected. Then you can see I take my knife and I actually kind of carve out part of the pants so you can see where the pants are going to end. And then I take my knife and I carve where the shirt ends, the difference between the shirt and the pants. And I just kind of pushed that in. I didn't cut it, I just pushed it in. Now you can see I'm making the arms. So once I'm forming the arms, once I get it, I kind of flatten it out on the table And now you can see I put slip on, and then I score both the body and the arm. And you see that I've made my arm connected to the body. That's going to make it nice and secure so that arm doesn't fall off. And then I just kind of push in the clay where the connection was after I've smoothed it out. And I make an arm, and then I checked underneath just to make sure I wasn't collapsing inside the body still. Then all I do is try to make the next shape, or the next arm. I'm just forming it. I tried to make sure it's about the exact same length as the other arm. And then I flatten it out, and you can see, of course, that I slip and score that arm, make sure that it's connected really well. I make this arm stick up a little bit because I want to try to make it so it looks like it's holding a paintbrush. So you can see I'm kind of pushing it in after I smooth it out, and then I kind of form the hand. I wanted to make like a little hole where his thumb and his hand go to make it so if I wanted to put something in there, or if I just wanted to paint it in. So after that, I'm kind of done with my body. You can see that there's kind of a point where the head is going to be. That's where the head is going to sit. And I think I carve on some little jean pockets there in the back. And done with the head. Now I start with the body. So again, I ball up my clay, make sure there are no holes, and then this is just a classic pinch pot. You guys know exactly how to do that. You start by stuffing your thumb in the middle of it, and then you just kind of pinch your way out. Now, the first head that I make, it was way too big. You'll see me actually put it on to the body, and it like goes almost to the ground, and it was way too big. So here I cut a huge chunk of the sides off just because it was way too big. I left a little bit for the face. Now, you will see that I actually spend a lot of time forming the head, just trying to get the shape. Now, if you remember what Bob Ross looks like, he has this huge afro that's totally curly. Now, right here, I'm actually made a little nose, and then I slip and score that before I put that on, and then I smooth it out so it's nice and formed. Then I just kind of put my thumb in to make where the eye sockets are. And then you can see I'm making his beard. This looks kind of weird. It looks like I'm putting a snake on his face. But then I slip and score both the beard and his face. Then I smooth it out. And so I make a big beard, and then I have to make his mustache, of course. So I make a little snake again for right underneath his nose to make his mustache. And after I smooth that out, I actually spent some time forming his head. I tried it on the body a couple times just to make sure it fits. If it doesn't fit, feel free to start over again. You can do this a couple times. I carve out his ear a little bit. I'm kind of just using my fingernails to carve a little because I don't want to cut too deep. And then I spend a lot of time forming that to make sure that you can see where his forehead ends and his hair begins. And then I decided that his hair wasn't big enough because Bob Ross's hair is huge. That's his signature style. And so you can see I have a bunch of clay left over, and I decide that I'm going to add a big, huge layer to his hair to make it thicker. So I, again, can't attach any two pieces of clay without slipping and scoring. So you can see that I'm scoring a ton on top of the hair, both pieces. And then I just attach those and I smooth them out, try to bring his hair up a little bit. And finally I get his afro to be big enough. And I make sure that the inside's nice and smooth. I get my fingers wet and make sure that the top is smoothed out. And then I have my bobblehead completely finished. I cannot wait to see what you guys create. You guys, this is what my Bob Ross ended up looking like before I put it in the kiln. This is what you guys are going to be doing. So since you guys are making bobbleheads, I found this amazing NBA bobblehead commercial. Enjoy. All right, see ya.